Today, we're going to be exploring two historic sites as archaeologists. But before we pick up our shovels, let's take a step back and define what archaeology is, explore some popular conceptions and misconceptions about what archaeologists do, and then look at the reality of what archaeology is and the steps that archaeologists take to study historic sites. So you were all asked to tap into your prior knowledge and to try to define archaeology. Put simply, archaeology is the study of humanity's past through material remains. This includes the ancient past of our earliest human ancestors to the very recent past, say by studying what your local community throws out in a given year by visiting your town dump. Archaeologists call these remains material culture, which includes all of the tangible stuff, the material that humans use or make, things like tools, artwork, books, architecture. Material culture contains clues to the historical and social context of the people who used that stuff. For instance, the shape or color of a tool may have held meaning to the person who made it or later used it. And we've already studied material culture during this workshop. On Tuesday, we were looking at material culture during our Objects Tell Stories activities. And then Wednesday, we were looking at material culture related to the shipwrecks and artifacts that were found related to the Battle of Valcour Island. So one thing that archaeologists don't study are dinosaurs. That's the realm of paleontologists. It's a common misconception, and one that is quite understandable given that both archaeologists and paleontologists excavate old things, and our field tools look pretty similar. And from far away, looking at an archaeologist out in the field excavating material culture and looking at a paleontologist out in the field excavating fossils, it can look the same. But just remember that archaeologists study human activity and paleontologists study plant and animal fossils, not humans. While archaeologists may study plant and animal remains, we only do so if those remains are connected to human activity. So, for instance, we might be studying human and plant remains that were the leftovers from a meal that a human in the past may have cooked. When we ask someone to describe what an archaeologist looks like, it's hard not to imagine some of the famous and infamous archaeologists in popular culture. No matter what your age is, every decade has introduced a new cast of archaeologists for us to follow on their adventures. And as often happens, these archaeologists are often caricatures that share some common traits. Do you see some of those common traits here? They're often white men. They really like hats. They enjoy getting dirty. And they're often facing big malevolent forces, from ancient demons and mummies that they awaken by their digging, to modern day evils such as Nazis and elitist academics at the British Museum. And of course, television reality shows most recently have also fed into the mystique, depicting modern-day archaeology as a dramatic treasure hunt, where metal detectors and pickaxes are employed to find the gold hidden long ago by pirates, pioneers, and ancient empires. The reality, of course, is quite different. A lot of archaeology these days is done at a desk and on a computer, conducting research, analyzing our data, and writing up our results, not dodging traps in some ancient temple. And the vast majority of fieldwork conducted in the United States, over 90%, is carried out under the umbrella of federal and state historic preservation laws, in which archaeologists are employed to avoid or mitigate damaging archaeological sites during construction projects that receive public funding or public assistance of some kind. Very little archaeology is conducted as part of academic research or done just for archaeology's sake. And professional archaeologists are not treasure hunters. In fact, it's against our professional ethics to ever put a monetary value on an artifact. So you're not going to see an archaeologist on Antiques Roadshow or Pawn Stars anytime soon. Although the beautiful artifacts made from precious metals and jewels dominate Hollywood archaeology, most of our time in our labs are spent studying the mundane. Pieces of rock that have cracked in a cooking fire, tiny sherds of pottery that contain even smaller pieces of material that can tell us how well the pottery could have cooked a meal, or charred seeds that help us understand what people in the past were even eating. Finally, the majority of archaeologists earning PhDs in the United States today are women, and the field has been making some progress on increasing representation among Black, Indigenous, and people of color as well. And because archaeology is considered a STEM field, it's really important that when our students are asked to describe an archaeologist, they can begin imagining not just some swashbuckling man in a fedora, but men and women who are just as diverse as they are. So just as archaeologists can run the gamut, so do archaeological sites. From the monumental to the ephemeral. Sites can be a sprawling ancient city or a small campsite where a hunter may have sharpened their stone tools at one point. Archaeological sites may still be on the surface of the earth, still visible, or embedded deep in the soil or underwater. And so, what steps do archaeologists follow to study such sites and learn from material culture if it's all so diverse? Well, we do follow a standard methodology of archaeological inquiry, and it always starts with a question. We never just start digging because we're curious or have a hunch. We have to have a specific research question to guide our study. Otherwise, we're just shooting in the dark. Sometimes a research question can be as simple and generic as, is there an archaeological site here? And sometimes a research question can be as complex and specific as, what environmental factors contributed to the rise and fall of Mayan cities in the Yucatan Peninsula? Let's think back to what we learned yesterday from the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum and their archaeological study of the Battle of Valcour Island. An example of one of their central research questions was, what happened during the Battle of Valcour Island? And so now I'd like you to try your hand at the first step in thinking like an archaeologist. And that means letting your curiosity flow and brainstorming a potential research question or two that you would want to explore at the site of Mount Independence. Now, some of you may already be wondering, but how do I know if my research question is a good one? First of all, I'll say that you're only brainstorming. Just let the thoughts flow. Once you have a list, just ask yourself, can I try to answer this question by looking at material culture, the tangible stuff that humans have made or used in the past? If you think you can, then you've got yourself a viable archaeological research question.